to bury it. And so I think instead of easing into it, I think it's important just to come out and say it. I suffer from depression. That's a real thing. That's a terrifying thing to tell people, because you never know how somebody's going to react. You never know what somebody's going to say, how they're going to feel about you, or what they're going to tell other people. So I think the best thing that we can do to start off with is be honest, admit it. If you're depressed, you're depressed. That's okay. There's a lot of power in that. And that's like everything that I want to talk about today, because I found in all that negativity and everything that I've dealt with in my entire life, it's also been a huge, huge, huge positive thing for me. Like Victoria said, I'm in a band most of you probably have never heard of. We're called Ghostkey. I know there's a couple people here who might know who I am. So start off with that a little bit. Like 9 months out of the year, I'm on the road. I travel. I go broke, doing basically the same thing that I'm doing right now. Our entire message is built around my experience dealing with depression, how it's affected my life, and also a lot of the times it deals with how it's affected other people, or how other people have affected me. Ever since I was about 11 years old, I always felt a little different. My mom always told me I was sensitive. She told me that anytime people had something to say to me, that it kind of hit me a little deeper than everybody else. And I always just thought, okay, yeah, I'm a sensitive kid, no worries. But as I got older, I started to realize that not only was I taking the things that people said to me to heart, but I was dwelling on them. Anytime somebody had a judgment about me, anytime somebody told me they didn't like the way I looked or the way I talked, they didn't like who I was hanging out with, I would let that eat at me. And as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense to think about ending your own life because somebody doesn't like you. And so I went to great lengths to please people. I would change the way I dressed. I would change the way I talked. I would do anything I can to get people to like me. But for a long time, I didn't understand what that was, why I felt that way, because nobody was talking about it. And as I look back on that, I wish that somebody would have come to my school and they would have talked to me. I wish that somebody would have come and told me that what I was feeling was okay, that it was to be dealt with instead of to be buried. And it just got harder. It got more difficult because I'm starting to get older and I'm starting to hear about it, but not from people that need to be telling me. I'm hearing about it because I'm starting to lose friends. I get to high school, still the same old me, trying to please people. Every day I'm wearing different clothes, I look like a different person, and I'm still struggling. I find out from a friend that someone that I'm pretty close with is struggling too. I don't really say anything to him. I don't bring it up because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that he's going to tell me what I already know, and that's that he's dealing with the same thing. Fast forward about 2 years later, it was a little bit of a disagreement. It wasn't a big deal, but with those things, your friends, you get in arguments, and as years go by, you kind of float apart from each other. But he's still struggling, and I knew he was. I get a phone call from my friend Logan. He tells me I need to sit down. And I think that if you've ever had a phone call where somebody tells you to sit down, you know where that's going. You know that it's not going to be good. And he tells me, Brent took his own life last night. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to tell you about it. I don't know how to deal with this. But he's gone. And so I sat on the edge of my bed after I hung up that phone, and I had no idea how to feel. I had no idea what to do, and in fact, it didn't even hit me for a couple weeks because I just tried to bury it, just like everyone always told me to. I was about 18 years old. I'm 24 now. And for the first time in my life, I confronted depression. I confronted mental illness. For the first time in my life, I tried to accept that what I was dealing with was real. And I decided that I was going to not let people step all over me anymore. I wasn't gonna let people tell me that I needed to be quiet. So I started a band. Me and my friends got in a garage together, started playing music. I played drums because I played Rock Band a lot. I learned how to play the drums off Rock Band. That's what I wanted to do. And we played shows for a little bit. It wasn't with Ghost Key. It was just a stupid little band, 3 of my friends, and I got to help contribute to the writing a little bit because my friend Chris, who is in Ghost Key now, he knew that I was always journaling. I was always writing stuff down in my phone, in a notebook, anytime I had a thought. And so I'm playing drums in this band, and Chris has kind of let me contribute a little bit, let me add to his lyrics and sort of put like a personal spin on it, and it was great. It was one of the best things for me ever. And fast forward a couple of years after that, I'm about 19, 20 years old. That band kind of dissolves. I mean, we're all still friends. Actually, everybody that is in that band is now in Ghost Key. And after that band dissolved, they all wanted to do something new. Of course, I was on board because I found so much love in the community that the music scene brought me. And so they're like, okay, we're going to do this thing. And again, I was like, I want to play drums because I love rock band, so let me play drums. And we do a couple practices, and we finally decide on sort of what we want to do, how we want to sound, all that stuff that comes with being in a band. And my friend Andrew steps in, and Andrew is a significantly better drummer than I am, tenfold actually. Also one of the sweetest humans I've ever met in my entire life. And when he had to tell me that he was going to play drums instead of me, he was very, very delicate, but it still broke my heart. My friend Jeff, who I am going to plug because he's a very talented individual. He does poems. His name is Keon. I urge you to check that out if you get a chance. My friend Jeff is going to do vocals. And so we do a couple practices, and I'm sort of trying to figure out, am I going to play guitar, or what am I going to do, because there's no way that I can do vocals. And Jeff decides to lay it on me that he's going to move to Columbus, Ohio. Now, I have to do vocals. I have never in my life been more terrified of having to stand in front of any amount of people and say anything. I never thought of myself as a speaker. I never thought of myself as somebody who could share any part of me with anybody. Here I am. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but this is how it worked out. And so as we're working on trying to be a band and trying to figure out what we want to do with this whole thing, I get encouragement from the other guys to really just let it out, to pour myself into this. They know that I have journal entries I've never showed anybody. They know that I'm writing about things that may hurt some people's feelings, that may make people scared, that make them uncomfortable. And they say, you know what? Do it. Because if we're going to do this, we want it to be real. We want it to be honest. And it was then that literally everything changed. It changed my entire life. Because for the first time, instead of telling me to bury it, I had 4 people rally around me and tell me to be myself, to be honest, to let people know how I was feeling. And it was incredible. I was still scared. I was terrified. I can tell you for the first year of being a band, instead of doing this, I did this. I didn't look at a soul because I was terrified of what people thought. I was scared that I was going to open up, I was going to be honest with people, and instead of being receptive, they were just going to make fun of me. Back to me being the sensitive kid. I get a little more comfortable. I start staring at people. Instead of doing what I should do and kind of look around, I just start fixating on people. Somebody tells me, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. That makes people really uncomfortable. Good. Because now I figured out my thing. Now I figured out that if I want to tell somebody the truth, if I want to tell somebody how I'm feeling, instead of looking this way, instead of staring at the ground, or instead of scanning, I'm going to stare at them. I'm going to look them right in the face, tell them how I feel. I've never done that before. 21 years old. It took me almost 10 years to finally open up and tell people how I was feeling. It took me 10 years to finally understand that the only way that I could get better is by talking, by telling people. Not by staring at a wall, not by burying it, by staring people in the face, and no matter how it was going to make them feel, I was going to tell them. And if you didn't want to hear, too bad, because I was the one that had a microphone. Being in a band has changed my entire life. And I'm not here to tell you that you have to start a band. I'm not here to tell you that you've got to play music to feel better. That's not what it's about. What I am here to tell you is that there is a lot of hope and honesty. I've been going to shows for a long time. My brother took me to my first show at, I think, maybe 10 years old. I remember seeing Under Oath, a band that some people here might know, in a Legion Hall in East Peoria, Illinois, with 30 other people. That band now plays to thousands. I remember seeing that band and thinking, this is insane. Why are these people yelling? Why are they so loud? This doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard on the radio. I hate this. I never want to do this. And it took me a couple years, but I started to latch onto it because I started to realize these people have something to say. That's why they're so loud. That's why, instead of worrying about getting paid, they're playing to 30 people in a room. Because they know that they can stand in a room full of 30 people and they can tell them the truth, and those people will listen. So it's about being honest. It's about being real with yourself and about telling the truth. Doesn't mean you have to start a band. You can do that with art. You can do that with writing. You can do it with anything. I have taken something that at times feels like has destroyed my entire life. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that every day is easy. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that there are not days that I wake up and I wish I didn't, because that would be everything that I'm against. I know one thing. I am terrified of depression. But that's okay. Because every time I wake up and I feel like the weight of the world is just bearing down on me, there is always one thing that I can think about. And it's that I feel something. It sucks, it hurts, it kills me. But it's a reminder that I still feel something. I'm still alive. Art, writing, it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody in this room has the capability to build something. You don't have to be in a band that plays to 1,000 people to give a message. You don't have to be an artist that sells a million paintings to give a message. You don't have to be on the New York Times bestseller list with your book. I know people who distribute magazines to 15 or 20 people at a time. I know people who make paintings that hang on walls with price tags on them so low that people scoff at them. They don't even want to buy it because they think it's too cheap. But that doesn't mean that there's not a message there. That doesn't mean that when they made that painting that there wasn't feeling put into it, or when they wrote that magazine that there wasn't something important in there. There's a little pamphlet that you've got today, and it has a bunch of speakers in it, and it tells you all the times. Everybody on that list, there are people speaking right now in other rooms, everybody on that list has something to say. Everybody on that list knows that there might be 5 people in there, but they're still going to say it. And that's what's important. When I woke up today, I had no idea how this was going to go. I rode my bike here from the Joliet metro station. It's about a 7-mile bike ride. And the whole way here, I just kept thinking, God, what are these people going to think of me? How are they going to feel? Am I going to make them uncomfortable? So maybe you are uncomfortable. Maybe this isn't something you're used to hearing all the time. But I'm depressed. And that's the honest truth. But I have found so much hope in honesty. For so long, people always tried to sell me that. They said, you just got to find hope. You got to find hope. And I never knew what that meant. I didn't understand it because it felt like they were trying to tell me that I needed to find something, but they were giving me no direction. So let me give you a direction. Be honest. Be honest with yourself. Next time somebody tells you to be quiet or they tell you to bury something, if you're feeling that way, instead, how about you tell somebody? Tell your best friend. Tell your mom. I used to tell my teacher. And every single time, I will never forget this. In 8th grade, I was in chorus. So I've been singing a long time, and he hates me now because he thinks I'm destroying my voice by yelling every night. He doesn't seem to get it that there's a way to do this without hurting yourself, but he's from a different time, that's okay. But I remember his name is Mr. Driscoll, Pete Driscoll. One of the biggest influences my entire life, because every time something was going wrong, I knew that I could just say something to him, and we would walk out of his classroom, and it was about 3 steps, just like this. And he would sit me down and he would go, let it out. Tell me everything. And sometimes it was as simple as, I woke up today and I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. Or sometimes it was as difficult as I thought about killing myself yesterday. And every single time, it didn't matter. He would always tell me to open up. And it didn't matter if it was the heaviest thing in the world or it was easy to get by. He would still listen. There are people in your life who can be Mr. Driscoll. But if you never tell them, if you never ask for them to listen, they never know that they can. And that's not to put the burden on them. Because there are also people in your life who are going to ignore you. You're going to want to talk. You're going to want to put those signs out there. You're going to want somebody to listen. And instead those people walk away. Well, guess what? You don't need those people. If they're not willing to listen, if they're not willing to be there for you, you don't need them. Simple as that. Something the band has been doing for a really long time. And we've been a band now for almost 6 years. Is every time we play a show, I always make it a point to tell people that number one, there's somebody that's willing to listen. And number two, if you think there isn't, I will. I have told a lot of stories in my life. I have let more people in than I thought I ever would. And I think it's only fair that I return that favor. I think it's only fair that I let you open up to me.